Ukraine is taking full advantage of the night vision sent to it from Western allies, while Russia can't fight Ukraine at night because it's too expensive and they don't train troops for night fighting in any case. Privyet, Druzy, Wes O'Donnell, Army infantry veteran and veteran of the Air Force, and yes, in case you were wondering, the Air Force was so much better. Today, we're talking about the night vision mismatch between Ukraine and Russia. So let's tie down those nods and make sure our batteries are charged. Oh, and subscribe if you're feeling froggy, pass if you're feeling groggy. Let's jump in. In 1945, U.S. military scientists sent the first ever American night vision devices to soldiers and Marines in the Pacific Theater. Parallel development of night vision systems occurred in Germany, but these devices, like many German technological advances, arrived too late to meaningfully change the outcome of the war. For American soldiers in the Pacific, these clunky infrared sniper scopes, also called snooper scopes, were put to good use repelling Japanese assaults at night on Okinawa. Because only 300 were made available, they often went to the best snipers in a given unit. By 1954, U.S. Field Manual 100-5 Field Service Regulations and Operations devoted considerable attention to night combat, discussing tactical and technical strengths and weaknesses of night operations, as well as special considerations for attack and defense. In the post-Vietnam world, the U.S. military has dominated night warfare. My Army unit even adopted the unofficial motto, "We own the night." When I joined the Army Infantry in the late 1990s, the unit I was assigned to in the 101st Airborne Division only performed operations at night. We continued this throughout the late 2000s. Sleep during the day and move and fight at night. We used to have to run obstacle courses while wearing the now ancient AN/PBS-7 night vision goggles. Many soldiers' ankles have been sacrificed on these obstacle courses, since these 90s era nods were monocular, which completely eliminated any sense of depth perception. They called it the PBS-7 Cyclops for a reason. By the time of the First Gulf War, the U.S. night vision advantage has been called by some the greatest mismatch in military history. The Iraqi army had none, and coalition forces were able to seek and destroy Iraqi Republican Guard forces at will. Former Navy Secretary John Lehman told Congress during a 1991 hearing, "It was the ability to attack at night, when all of the rest of the world's defenses are at 10% of what they are in the daytime, that gave us this huge immediate impact and edge." Today, the technology gap between the U.S. and its rivals is narrowing. But a nation must still be able to afford to either produce or buy its night vision. In Ukraine, the U.S. has supplied its ally with tens of thousands of modern NVD scopes and goggles to see in the dark, including thermal imagers to detect heat and drones with both functions. Before the war, Russia was thought to have a somewhat modern level of night vision capability for its infantry. In 2020, the Russian Ministry of Defense boasted of the Russian military kit called Ratnik, an old Russian word for warrior, which integrates over 60 elements: weapon sights, individual protection gear, sets of autonomous sources of heat, communications devices, night vision, and an active hearing protection system. Presumably, Russian defense contractor Central Research Institute of Precision Machine Building, part of the state tech corporation Rostec, delivered almost 300,000 Ratnik combat systems to Russian troops between 2013 and 2020. But it's unclear if these kits ever made it to ground forces, especially the ones that are now fighting in Ukraine. Video and images coming out of Ukraine show Russian soldiers who are poorly equipped and completely lacking even a single Ratnik component, including night vision. In reality, the majority of the 300,000 Ratnik kits, including their night vision, likely made their way to the black market well before the war in Ukraine started. Besides, the very fact that Russia produced 300,000 Ratnik kits for its rank-and-file soldiers is contradictory in itself, After all, Ratnik was developed to increase the survivability of the troops. But survivability is the last thing that Russian commanders care about in Ukraine. This is evident by the tactics employed around Bakhmut and Volodar. I've written in the past about how Russian contract soldiers have sent conscripts in probing attacks to identify Ukrainian emplacements, and then follow up with better equipped troops once these locations have been identified, at the cost of the conscripts' lives. With tactics like those, why would you outfit any soldier with Ratnik? This night vision difference between Ukrainian forces and Russian forces might be the new greatest mismatch in military history. Because of widespread corruption within the Russian armed forces, most Russian units simply can't operate at night in Ukraine. It's exceedingly likely that Russia has more night vision capabilities on its consumer drones than it actually has for its regular troops. I say most because I can envision the kit actually making its way to the more elite Russian units like Spetsnaz and Airborne, who likely hoard the higher-end equipment, further causing a shortfall for the regular Russian army. I'm not saying Russia doesn't have night vision at all. I'm just saying that nearly every frontline soldier in NATO will be equipped with it, while it appears to be pretty rare on the Russian side in Ukraine. By now, in our third year of war, Putin probably realizes the extent of his military corruption problem. But even if he wanted to buy modern night vision, this technology is exceedingly expensive. Even basic night vision can start in the tens of thousands of US dollars. Russia simply can't afford it unless they're buying cheap Chinese knockoffs. And it seems unlikely that Putin would prioritize night vision in any case. He seems more intent on spending his dwindling energy rubles on artillery ammo, Iranian-made suicide drones, and North Korean ballistic missiles. What's more, British intelligence has said that there is thought to be a cultural element to Russia's night fighting problem, because Russian military training has rarely emphasized night exercises. Russian military training typically happens during the day to impress senior visiting officers, according to the UK's Ministry of Defense. Let that sink in for a second. Russia doesn't train its rank-and-file troops to fight at night. On the flip side, Ukraine is taking full advantage of its ability to operate at night. Russian mill bloggers on Telegram have reported that NVDs are boosting Kyiv's ability to operate in the dark. They also saw an increase in Ukrainian forces launching nighttime raids during the early days of the Kharkiv counteroffensive and more recently in Kursk. George Barros, a geospatial intelligence team lead and Russia analyst within the Institute for the Study of War, told Insider that there's been combat footage and reports about Ukrainian night raids that have been fairly successful because of these night vision capabilities. Still, the persistent fog of war prevents us from knowing the full extent to which Russia is unable to defend against Ukrainian night attacks. Ukraine is exceptionally good at exploiting tactical advantages when they occur on the battlefield, while Russia is exceptionally slow at adapting to changing battlefield conditions. Every, and I mean every, Western system that has made its way to Ukraine, the Ukrainians have put to good use. It's an astonishing example of the old proverb from 1576, waste not, want not. In other words, willful waste makes woeful want, and the Ukrainians put to use every technological advantage that the West sends. According to the U.S. military veteran blog Task and Purpose, in 2014, researchers at the University of Michigan developed a light sensor so small it could be squeezed onto a contact lens, allowing, at least in theory, for the creation of night vision contacts. No doubt, Ukraine would make good use of those as well. As this unlawful invasion drags on, it's becoming more evident that Russia is fighting a 20th century war while Ukraine is leveraging some of the most modern warfighting tools available. This is partially why Ukraine has been able to even the odds against a much larger army. When historians look back on this war from the far future, they'll say Ukraine won for many reasons. They're fighting for their homes, their families, and for freedom. But they will also say Ukraine won because they own the night. That's it for now. When you subscribe, you allow me to keep doing this. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Slava Ukraini.